A happy Christmas Eve to you, Hope Church. My name is Philip, otherwise known as the father of the Star of Bethlehem this evening, and I am part of the leadership team here at Hope. We have just heard the familiar account of the Christmas story from the New Testament, and I'd like us to spend just a few moments paying attention to them together. These verses offer us an historical account of real happenings that took place here on this earth. Tomorrow morning, Jesse will speak to us about Christmas from the vantage point of heaven. But tonight, we're going to keep our feet firmly planted on the ground and think about Christmas on earth, then and now. There is a thread that connects the first Christmas with ours here in this strange year of 2020. And you can hear it if you listen closely to the first few verses of Luke's story. The ones that talk about Caesar Augustus and that Syrian bloke called Quirinius. Over and over again in these verses, we hear the words census and register. The scene is set for the first Christmas with a pile of regulations handed down from the government. And you can imagine the response to this across the entire Roman world. Some people spoke about the duty to comply with Caesar's decree, how doing so was in everyone's best interest, how it would keep everyone safe and happy across the whole empire in the long run. Others viewed this census as a display of government overreach, a stripping away of civil liberties by authorities invested with way too much power. The result in either case is that families are divided in more ways than one, and that every man, woman, and child now has to deal with this massive inconvenience plopped down into the center of their plans. It all sounds very familiar this year. Many of us hoped for a normal Christmas, only to arrive at December and still be in the midst of a pandemic. We've received no shortage of guidance from the government about how Christmas can be celebrated, but for many people this has only led to frustration, argument, and tension with family and friends, the last thing people want as we approach December 25th. Scripture tells us that hope deferred, that is, hope put on hold, makes the heart grow sick. And I wonder if you're feeling a bit of that sickness today as you mark Christmas Eve on Zoom. We could be meeting in person today and tomorrow morning, but it would still be all veiled faces and limited numbers, which makes many of us feel disrupted and disappointed. And this feeling that we feel actually brings us far closer to the reality of that first Christmas than many other years could. Picture, for a moment, young Mary, who we spoke about on Sunday, reaching the final stages of her pregnancy. It has been a long year, explaining to her fiancé the eye-raising circumstances of her pregnancy, dealing with rumors from family and friends, the relentless awareness of who she was carrying in her womb. The least Mary could do for that first Christmas was to have a really solid birth plan with trusted midwives and the comfortable surroundings of home. And then Caesar Augustus announces this census, a worldwide event that causes Mary's plans to go up in smoke. But the real Christmas was inside that disruption. It was the grand inconvenience of that census that ushered Mary to Joseph's hometown of Bethlehem, the place where hundreds of years before the prophet Micah foretold the Messiah would be born. Mary never could have planned the real Christmas, wonderful though her plans may have been. That's because Christmas has never been a matter of human planning. Christmas is about God's plan to tear the heavens open and come down. A Christmas without fairy lights, without family, without choirs, and without turkey would still be Christmas because we live on the planet where God became human. As a great African preacher called Augustine put it many, many years ago, he so loved us that for our sake he was made man in time, although through him all times were made. He was made man who made man. He was created of a mother whom he created. He was carried by hands that he formed. He cried in the manger in wordless infancy. He, the Word, without whom all human eloquence is mute. That is Jesus, truly God and truly man, come at Christmas to offer us life in a world stalked by death. There is a striking verse in the New Testament that speaks about Jesus and us. It says that since every human being on earth has flesh and blood, Jesus became a human like us, so that by his death he might set free all of those whose fear of death subjects them to lifelong slavery. Remember all the panic buying when we first learned about COVID-19? Pasta, rice, tinned goods, all of them stripped from the shelves in minutes. People rushing to the shops determined to live at any cost, and if others get nothing, that's fine. That is the fear of death. And it comes out of hiding when humans are faced with what we cannot understand or control. When we are really confronted with the prospect of death, it makes us mad. Death is the greatest disruption, the deepest disappointment of all, and it will ruin every one of us. Death is the salary we are paid for running from God. But Christmas is the mercy of God running toward us with life. It is the moment when God stoops down low to absorb in his own dying body the guilt of all who come to him. Because the manger is never far from the cross, and the cross is never far from Easter Day. That baby in the manger is the only one of us who has pierced through the black shroud of death and come out the other side. He is the only one, Augustine said, who can restore what has been lost, bring to life what has died, repair what has been corrupted, and keep thereafter without end what has come to an end. And if you will but bow before his manger, he will take you with him into an indestructible life that no disappointment or disruption can ever touch. We are going to sing together in a moment, and I encourage you to dim the lights and light a candle if you like. But before we do, I'd like to share a poem with you written just a few weeks ago by an Irish poet called Andrew Roycroft. This year, none of the pieces are in place. No finishing touch, just the rush headlong to make the best of things. More make do than make believe. A clamoring to retrieve family under one roof, to pluck some safety from the dragon's teeth, to make a place for joy again, long looked for after labor pains. The grace to hold our griefs in one hand, and with the other just hold on. This year has no precedent. Just more numbers from the government, just more bitterness of argument, sick hearts retching on hope deferred, reading tight between the lines for a word that might flare across the firmament and speak deliverance. But this year we have made the best of things, found shelter here against the odds, adapted what has come to hand, rested in the grander plan that underwrites this circumstance, sees grace instead of blinded chance, and lays in this manger ark the best beside the worst, the light amidst the dark, the king among the filth. And Mary cradles at her breast the head of one who from obscurity will carry heaven's destiny through thorn to crown. Dandles with her hand the heel that, promised from eternity, will crush King Death into the ground. This year, we have no normal, new or old, but a different day, a dawn, a moment long foretold, now here, this year. Merry Christmas, everyone.